The beginning. And
hello. Please be seated. Welcome, class of 2023, and welcome parents, grandparents, partners, spouses, children, friends, relatives, faculty, and staff. What a special day. My name is Bob Englander, and I'm the Associate Dean for Undergraduate Medical Education. I'm delighted to be your MC today. I'm going to first start with the pleasure of introducing the Vice Dean for Education and Academic Affairs, Dr. Mark Rosenberg.
Dean Tolar, education leaders, faculty advisors, faculty, students, and guests, I want to warmly welcome you, the class of 2023, to the University of Minnesota Medical School. We are pleased you have chosen our school, and we look forward to working with you over the next 4 years and beyond. You have all accomplished much in your lives, and you deserve to be here. A special welcome to all guests. Students will benefit from your ongoing support and companionship during their journey through medical education. I encourage you to provide opportunities for students to escape the rigors of medical school. Personally, I've always viewed medicine as a dream profession. I graduated from the University of Manitoba Medical School, the other U of M, in 1979, and will actually be attending my 40th class reunion in September. I did start when I was 10. I have been and continue to be fascinated by medicine almost every working day. Medicine has also introduced me to the two loves of my life. My wife, who I met on the wards of University of Minnesota Hospital when I was an intern and she was an ICU nurse. It does happen. And the kidney, which is the area of medicine I specialize in. For many reasons, I refrain from ranking these two loves. Medicine is a profession that combines human service with fascinating science and often pushes physicians to their limits of insight and creativity. Also, medicine is a big tent with many career options, including primary care, specialty medicine, research, public health, health policy, and many others. All of you will eventually find the area that fits best with your interests and personality. I encourage you, the class of 2023, to be engaged in your medical education. Your ideas and opinions matter to us, and we will regularly seek and value your input as we work to continuously improve our medical school. Also, please be supportive of your classmates. Look out for them, be there to listen to their challenges and to celebrate their accomplishments. We are all in this together, and we need to help each other in any way we can. Let me close by offering advice from William Osler, who is considered the father of modern medicine. Osler was a Canadian physician who is credited with being the first to bring medical students out of the lecture hall to the bedside for clinical training. Osler stated, "The good physician treats the disease, the great physician treats the patient who has the disease." Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rosenberg. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge everyone who's on the stage with us today. They are our medical school dean and vice dean, who you just heard from, associate and assistant deans of the medical school, faculty advisors, honored fourth-year medical students from whom you will hear shortly, and representatives from the medical community of Minnesota. I also want to note a special thanks to Dr. Ryan Greiner, President of the Twin Cities Medical Society, and Ms. Ruth Perriott, CEO of the Twin Cities Medical Society, for the gift of a medical pen light and a pupil gauge for each student, and to the University of Minnesota physicians and medical school alumni for the gift of a stethoscope for each of our students. I'd also like to recognize the alumni of the medical school in attendance today and thank them for their great support of this wonderful medical school. Alumni, if you are able, I'd ask you to stand, and let's give them all a round of applause, please. Since the white coat ceremony tradition at the University of Minnesota started somewhere in the 1990s, I won't ask you how many of you were actually in the ceremony, because that might give too much away. There are a number of staff and faculty today from the medical school in the audience as well. We want to thank them for all the work they do to make this medical school the great place that it is. As I told the students yesterday, it takes a village to make a physician. A special thank you also to the University of Medical School Admissions Committee for bringing together an outstanding class of future physicians, and to the Associate Dean for Admissions, Dimple Patel. Thank you. As always, you did an amazing job. Finally, I'd like to thank members of the Orientation Planning Committee, especially Scott Davenport, James Cooper, Marianne Waters, Scott Slattery, Diane Hennon, Sarah Roberts, Colleen Haas, Michael Kim, Jamie Larson, Mary Tate, Marianne Riley Spong, and second-year medical student Morgan Turk for their help literally all summer long planning this special event, in addition to 9 days of other activities that occurred this week. So thank you to all of them. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ann Pereira, Assistant Dean for Curriculum, who's going to tell you about the history of the White Coat Ceremony.
I will say I did not have a white coat ceremony, so that will date me into the mid-90s. Good afternoon. This is a day of celebration and anticipation for the University of Minnesota Medical School entering class of 2019. And today we want to thank you, the families and friends of these students, for raising these new physicians with your love and support, and for nurturing in them the values that led them to this journey. Today, we in the profession accept the responsibility to nurture these values in their professional development. First, a brief history of the White Coat Ceremony. In the late 1980s, Dr. Arnold Gold, a pediatric neurologist at Columbia University College of Physicians and Surgeons, and his wife Sandra, a professional educator, established the Gold Foundation, as they described, to nurture and preserve the tradition of the caring physician, for they feared that technological advances were shifting the focus in the practice of medicine from caring for the patient to an over-reliance on technology. 5 years later, and more than 25 years ago, the Gold Foundation introduced the White Coat Ceremony. Our school was one of the early adopters of this ceremony that is now performed at over 95% of medical schools in the country. Its purpose is to welcome students into the profession, to begin their journey with an oath, to obligate them to high professional standards for patient care and the practice of medicine. These standards focus on the development of the humanistic physician, one who demonstrates integrity, clinical excellence, altruism, respect, empathy, humility, and service. Dr. Gold said, "The real meaning of the White Coat Ceremony is in the words of the oath, any oath, that outlines the path that medical students are about to take. It is the very beginning, when they are still very idealistic and energetic. The white coat is just a symbol. It is an honorary and physical embrace from your colleagues. It is a hug and a blessing, and it holds the pin. The pin is a talisman, a palpable reminder of your commitment during rough times, of the purpose. It also shows others what path you are on. The oath you will take today was written by you, unique to your class, and it too can serve as a reminder of your commitment to this profession. I had the privilege this week of meeting some of you during your orientation. As always, you inspired me. I met future physicians with commitment to integrity, clinical excellence, altruism, respect, empathy, humility, and service. I am deeply honored to be part of this community with your class. In 2014, on the 20th anniversary of the inauguration of the White Coat Ceremony, Columbia students were asked what they hoped to remember from the ceremony. And one quote particularly embodies my hope for all of you. The student responded, "I hope I am able to remember the mix of emotions and thoughts that I experienced and attempted to reconcile that day. I first felt pride that I had finally arrived at medical school, but at the same time, I felt a fear of the vastness of the large tradition in front of me, the difficulty of medicine at times, and my desire to maintain the energy, hope, empathy, and optimism. Overwhelmingly, I felt an incredible warmth from those all around me. The White Coat Ceremony truly reminded me of the power of the profession of medicine. The journey is long, deeply rewarding, and at times not easy. This work is a tremendous privilege we're granted, the privilege of partnering with our patients to improve their health and well-being. Remember this embrace of the profession. Welcome to our community. You belong here. We are here to support you in the work ahead and to walk with you. Welcome.
Thank you for those beautiful words, Dr. Pereira. Being elected into the Gold Humanism Honor Society is truly an honor. I'd like to invite Abigail Schnaith and Michelle Graffelman, fourth-year medical students and Gold Humanism Honor Society members, to share their thoughts on this momentous occasion. After hearing their speech, I am certain you will understand why their classmates thought they so wonderfully represent the humanist side of medicine. Abby and Michelle.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. My name is Michelle Graffelman.
And I'm Abby Schnaith. We are fourth-year medical school students here as members and representatives of the Gold Humanism Honor Society. This society comprised of medical school students, residents, fellows, role model physician educators, and others who demonstrate excellence in humanistic clinical care, leadership, compassion, and dedication to service. As members, we strive to inspire and nurture humanism in other facilitating educational events and service opportunities that promote wellness and humanism in our medical community. How many of you guys like puzzles? Gaining acceptance into medical school feels like putting together a puzzle. Your education, volunteer, research, and work experiences represent the pieces, and now you may believe that your puzzle is finally complete. However, medical school is a journey that will add even more pieces to your individual beautiful puzzle.
Today, as others have already mentioned, you start to develop a really important aspect of your identity. Today, your dreams of caring for others are being realized. However, you still have a journey ahead of you, and it will likely prove to be a difficult one. I urge you to embrace that journey and engage yourself fully in your medical training because it is truly an amazing profession. However, I also encourage you to remember the other aspects of your life. Remember that your puzzle contains 100 pieces and medicine is only one. It's okay to get wrapped up in your courses and eventually your rotations, and it's expected that you will give them your all. But you will be a better person, a better sister or brother, a better friend, and truly a better doctor because of your other interests. I'm sure you've been hearing about well-being throughout orientation, and you may be thinking, great, another talk on prioritizing hobbies and loved ones. Yes, I am going to talk about that again, but I hope to give it a new spin. In fact, I have proof that keeping up with your other interests will not only help your well-being, but your work as a physician as well. A study was done in 2017 on 36 first-year medical students at the University of Pennsylvania. Half of the students participated in 6 1.5-hour art observation training sessions at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And the other half received a membership to the museum, but did not participate in those lessons. All the students were tested both before and after the art training sessions on their ability to describe images, both of art and clinical items, in particular eyes. They were assessed on their observations, interpretations, flexibility of thinking, comparisons, and more. The researchers found that those students who had received formal art training scored significantly higher on those assessments than those who did not have such training. So there you have it. Evidence that having and maintaining interests outside of medicine can actually improve medical reasoning and our ability to connect with our patients. This study was specific to ophthalmology and visual art. However, I truly believe that the results can be applied to a number of specialties and situations. In a response to the study, David Epstein and Malcolm Gladwell seemed to agree. They wrote, "Taking would-be physicians out of the hospital and into a museum, taking them out of their own world and into a different one, made them better physicians." To add to this evidence, they compared Nobel Prize-winning scientists to the general public and found that Nobel laureates are 22 times more likely to have serious hobbies into which they invest significant time outside of their work. These individuals have made great strides in science, in part because they are able to draw on unique experiences outside of their fields. I see 3 ways that these other pieces of our puzzles contribute to our work as physicians. 1, we have enhanced descriptive and observational skills, which enable us to be more astute practitioners. 2, We have more things potentially in common with our patients if we have lives outside of medicine. And 3, we have a greater understanding of different perspectives and viewpoints, which enables us to listen to our patients and understand what they are going through.
In your journey to becoming a physician, remember that your patients are also puzzles. However, the correct medical diagnosis only represents a few pieces of each patient's puzzle. Providing care with compassion and treating patients respectfully are also important pieces of both patients' and providers' puzzles. With this in mind, I founded the Gopher Buddies program. This program pairs a medical school student with a child who has a complex medical condition. The medical student gets to know the child and his or her family in a non-clinical setting. My Gopher buddy, Charlie, was born with holoprolencephaly, a condition where the brain does not divide into 2 hemispheres. At birth, her chance of survival was only 3%. However, she was 5 years old when I first met her. I thought holoprolencephaly would define her, as Charlie had spastic quadriplegia, was deaf, and was legally blind. She communicated through sign language and a specialized computer. Holoprolencephaly was only one piece of her puzzle. She had a wicked sense of humor and was extremely smart. She loved to tell me she didn't like me with her computer while simultaneously signing, "I like you," as she laughed hysterically. Another piece of her puzzle was being a teacher. Charlie taught me that a medical condition does not define a person, nor should it define the preconceived notions and limit your perception of his or her abilities. She taught me the great power of a smile and to take joy in the little things. I also learned the importance of acknowledging the patient in the room first, regardless of his or her medical condition. The puzzle pieces Charlie added to my own puzzle will forever influence the way that I practice medicine. Throughout medical school, you too will have countless opportunities for patients and teachers to add pieces to your puzzle. Embrace them all. When you receive your white coat today, you will find a puzzle piece inside one of the pockets. This piece is unique, just like each of you. We hope you keep this with you to signify that medicine is just one piece of your much larger puzzle. Let it remind you to continue doing things you love as you pursue a career in medicine. Let it demonstrate for you that you are surrounded by other pieces of a puzzle in medicine, for when we work together, we can accomplish more than we can on our own. Let it show you that a diagnosis or a disease is only one part of your patient and inspire you to learn more about them. Finally, may the puzzle piece remind you that there is always more to learn, and in learning, there are many more beautiful pieces to be created.
We want to leave you with a quote from the neuroscientist and artist Santiago Ramon y Cajal. He said, "To him who observes them from afar, it appears as though they are scattering and dissipating their energies, while in reality, they are challenging and strengthening them." Thank you.
So thank you, Michelle and Abby. I have to say that was a special moment for me. I was reflecting as you were talking on the fact that I entered with your class. So my first white coat ceremony at the University of Minnesota was when Abby and Michelle were receiving their white coats. And what a joy and a privilege to watch the transformation. And how excited I am for the class of 2023 to watch that transformation over the next 3 to 4 years. You do us proud. Thank you. I have the great pleasure now and distinct honor of providing your keynote address. What a privilege it is indeed on this most special and sacred occasion. First and foremost, I want to offer my congratulations. You've already made it through a difficult course and over many hurdles to join an elite group of students who are about to begin their professional careers in medicine across the country. You should also be congratulated for picking what I think remains a most noble profession. Even as times change considerably, and even as we are faced with reinventing the profession to match the emerging needs of the public in the 21st century. I've always been grateful for and sure of my decision to enter this field. I wish for all of you that you can say the same thing some 36 years from now, which is the duration of time since I sat in those chairs, figuratively, in my first days of medical school. What I want to talk to you about today is perhaps not a typical topic for a white coat ceremony keynote, and that is the topic of love. But before I get started, I want to ask each of the students here to take a couple of minutes to reflect on why you are here. In the deepest sense, what motivated you to come to medical school? What factor or factors resulted in your sitting in these seats today? Dig deep and keep asking why. If, for example, your first answer is, well, because my mom was a doctor, then ask why her being a doctor impacted you enough to want to go through the rigors of getting into medical school. And if the answer is because you saw how happy and fulfilled she was in her career, then ask, why was she so happy and fulfilled? What was it about this career? In just a moment, I'm going to actually ask the students to get yourself into pairs and share with your partner what that primary motivator was for you when you decided to pursue becoming a doctor. And I want your partner to ask you at least 2 probing whys until you really get to the root of the reason you're here today. For the faculty, I invite you to take these minutes to reflect on and perhaps share with a neighbor what motivated you to enter the field of medicine. What sustains that motivation? What brings you joy and fulfillment in your work? And for the wonderful friends and family members in the audience, why do you think the student that you're here with today chose this profession? How do you think, while they're talking up front, they're answering that question of why? So starting now, 4 minutes, 2 minutes for each person. Go. Okay, I'll ask you to bring the conversations to a close. I'm sorry you're all so shy and had nothing to say. Now, if I asked you each to stand up and answer individually, we might not finish the white coat ceremony in the first semester. So instead, what I'm going to do is name a few categories, and I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if your primary motivator, the real root cause of why you're here, was related to the following. How many of you cited a relationship as your primary motivator, perhaps with someone in healthcare, a patient, a teacher, a doctor? How many of you are here motivated? I gotta love this. The only time I ever use my phone in a state is for the alarm. It's now going off. It's exactly 4 minutes. Sorry. How many of you are here motivated primarily by your ability to excel in math and science? Okay. How many of you mentioned the desire to heal and care for others as your primary motivator? Okay. How many of you cited the ability to be engaged in healthcare-related discovery as your primary motivator? Great. How many of you were driven here by your excitement over the preparation? Chemistry, physics, biology, the MCATs? And finally, how many of you were driven by the economics of healthcare, the opportunity for a good and stable income? Please don't raise your hands. So I think for those of you in the audience who could see, you'll see the reason you are here is predominantly your desire to bring meaning to your careers through relationships. Yet much of medical education in the 20th century and even into the 21st century is really focused on science. Now, please don't misinterpret my emphasis. I'm not debasing or dismissing the importance of science. But I am suggesting that the scientific foundations are a means to an end, and not the end themselves. The end is much more related to the human aspects we just enumerated: healing, relationships, and caring. And I would argue that underlying all those motivators is the power of love. Love is a difficult word in the English language. The single word expresses a spectrum of definitions. The Greek language presents us with 4 types of love, all rooted in the Bible. Filial love, from the Greek philia, represents the close love of friendship. Eros represents physical, sensual love. Storge represents familial love, as the bond between mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers. And finally, agape represents unconditional, selfless, and sacrificial love. For the purposes of our discussion today, I suppose what I am most getting at is the concept of love as represented by that latter term, agape, perhaps closest to the English term, loving kindness. In preparing this talk, I came across a beautiful Buddhist poem on the concept of loving kindness by Chen Heng. The title of the poem is Metta, which comes from the Buddhist tradition and means a benevolence towards all beings without discrimination that is free of self-attachment. It is a strong, sincere wish for the happiness of all beings. The concept of metta, as elucidated by Chen Heng, captures my understanding of loving kindness. So I'd like to share with you her poem. Stemming from within, we all have a gift to share. A gentle smile, a comforting touch. Every moment cultivating a boundless heart towards all beings with loving kindness. In the face of aversion, confronted with old hurts, that is when kindness eludes us the most, as we put up barriers, we forsake others, we abandon love, and eventually we forget. Deep down inside, there are parts of us we try to hide even from ourselves. The things we are not proud of, our mistakes, our fears, our own vulnerabilities. Just as we shut them away, so too do we close ourselves off from those who remind us of our imperfection. We lose sight of our aspiration. Loving kindness in its purest form comes from acceptance and embracing ourselves for who we are, and in that learn to love others wholeheartedly, unjudgingly, and unconditionally, without justification and condemnation. This way, the barriers melt away, allowing love and kindness to shine in its entirety. Metta. Having shared with you the basis for my attention to love today, that it in many ways underscores the why you are all here, and having examined the working definition of loving kindness we will use so beautifully expressed by Chen Hung, I want to turn now to a brief look at medical education over the past century so I can frame for you the place of love in the course of becoming a doctor. Most of what we do today is based on the work of a man named Abraham Flexner, a great educator who in 1910 wrote a treatise on the state of medical education in the United States and Canada. He lambasted the lack of attention, to science and the lack of standards for medical education. At the time, you might be surprised to hear that most medical schools were for-profit, and thus the major factor for admission was actually wealth. As you can imagine, the result was an absence of quality control over the educational process, and many schools produced quite literally quacks. Now, I'm happy to report this was not the case for the majority of large university-based schools such as ours. Flexner's work resulted in a dramatic change in medical education over the ensuing 25 years, including the prerequisites for medical school, that you even had to go to college. You had to have chemistry, biology, and physics. And the 2-by-2 structure we currently have, with the first 2 years of medical school focused on the foundational sciences and the last 2 on the clinical sciences. The focus then, while elevating standards, was still on what the curriculum should be, but without any attention to the outcomes expected of students who completed those requirements. Towards the end of the 20th century, educators began to realize that this structure of medical education and training and the uniform focus on knowledge and patient care skills was producing graduates who were not prepared to meet the demands of residency, and residency graduates unprepared to meet the needs of practice. Over the past 15 years, we've turned to a system of competency-based medical education in which we actually start by delineating the competencies doctors need to care for patients in the 21st century. And then we have those outcomes drive our curriculum. This movement started in graduate medical education for residents and has only recently begun to shape changes at the nation's medical schools. The notion of a 21st century physician now includes 8 major domains of competence. Knowledge for practice, yes, you still need medical knowledge and patient care skills, but also professionalism, interpersonal and communication skills, systems-based practice, practice-based learning and improvement, interprofessional collaboration, and personal and professional development. Now, I appreciate that these domains move the conversation forward enormously compared to the late 20th century, when I told you the focus was really almost exclusively on knowledge and patient care skills. In fact, I have personally committed the scholarly portion of my life to competency-based medical education, and I am thus invested in teaching and assessing the competencies. But even though I'm certain that we will vastly improve healthcare if we can dedicate ourselves to ensuring that physicians demonstrate these competencies from medical school through certification and practice, there's something that leaves me wanting as I talk about the competency domains and their requisite competencies. I've pondered why the current state leaves me wanting, and I want to share a story with you from about 6 years ago that was my personal aha moment. I'm lucky enough to be part of an amazing learning community of interprofessional healthcare educators dedicated to catalyzing improvement in healthcare. 75 to 90 members of the community gather every summer for a week in a beautiful setting on a lake in Vermont. Each day we sit with a different contingent of the participants. One day I was sitting next to an erudite gentleman named J.J. Steinberg. He's a pathologist and was residency program director at the time. The assignment was to think of an educational program we had developed successfully and reflect on why we thought it was successful. With a glow in his eyes, he spoke about how he had taken the pathology program from a point of especially low morale and turned it around. As the active listener, I was prompted to ask why he thought he had been successful. And without missing a beat, he said to me, love. It all starts with love, Bob. As we spoke together, I tried to untangle what he really meant at the heart of that statement, and I think it was this. A great program in pathology, or any other specialty for that matter, has to start from a place of love. Loving what he was doing, loving the residents, loving being a part of their growth, and loving the patients who would be on the receiving end of that growth. I've thought often of his statement and the implications of, quote, "it starts with love," end quote. Love was literally, for JJ, the most important foundational ingredient for success. In reflecting back on my own career and the role models who've made the biggest difference, I realized how much starting with love was at the heart of what moved me. Witness Bob Gifford, Dean of Student Affairs at Yale while I was a medical student. I was lucky enough to have Dr. Gifford as my first attending on a 6-week internal medicine rotation. 2 encounters stand out for me. The first was Mrs. Brown, a woman in her 50s, who was homeless, schizophrenic, brilliant, and charming. She was admitted for pneumonia and an oxygen requirement, and she was also noted to have lice on admission. I embarrassingly remember being a bit disturbed by the lice and always feeling an itching in my scalp on entry or departure from the room. The first time we went in as a team, I will never forget Dr. Gifford going right to the bedside, sitting in a chair, and taking Mrs. Brown's hand in his as I presented the medical facts of her presentation. He remained focused on her throughout, and I watched her paranoia melt away as he held her hand and watched her, mitigating as I inevitably stumbled through some of the presentation. I mostly remember the true power of his loving kindness, how non-judgmental he was of her circumstances, and how he treated her with the deepest respect. When I returned to her room later, she said in her affected Southern accent, "I simply love that Dr. Gifford. He's so handsome and smart. Please tell him I said so." Later, I saw Dr. Gifford and told him about my conversation with Mrs. Brown, and he responded, "And I love her too." He went on to lament how our society has allowed her to be homeless, noting that while we could certainly help with the pneumonia and her lice, there was so much more we could do to help her heal. By the time she was ready for discharge, Dr. Gifford had made sure that she had a place to go to recuperate and insurance in place to get the mental health services she desperately needed. The second encounter that stands out started one morning when Dr. Gifford asked the medical students on the team if we would like to go to his rheumatology clinic, and I jumped at the chance. I remember standing outside a patient's door, and Dr. Gifford prepared us that we were about to see an elderly woman crippled by rheumatoid arthritis that she had had for many years. He spoke of how, despite the natural progression of her disease and their limited ability to slow or halt it, she never missed an appointment, and she was always very positive. He said he loved this woman and her immutable positivity despite her disease, and that he was always excited to see her on the schedule. There must have been about 10 of us accompanying him in his clinic, and I happened to be at the front of the pack on the way in. Her face lit up with a smile as we entered, and she saw Dr. Gifford. Again, he sat next to her on the examining table with a hand on her shoulder or on her hand the entire time. The two of them caught up in the interval history as if no one else was in the room. Then they spoke about her life, how she was feeling otherwise, what was happening with her kids and her grandchildren, and how she had been coping with the disease. Dr. Gifford had no new treatments to offer, nor hope for a cure, and was honest with her about their limited ability to change the treatment or the outcome. I'll never forget what she said after that. "Dr. Gifford, just seeing you every 3 months is treatment enough for me." He blushed and smiled and told her how much he loved seeing her as well. As I had been the first to enter the room, I was the last to leave, and as I walked by the examining table where the patient was sitting, I felt a tiny little tug on my arm. I turned to see her hand, crippled with arthritis, on the sleeve of my own proudly worn white coat. She motioned for me to come close and lean near my ear, and she stated, "Son, if you can be 1/10 the doctor that Dr. Gifford is, you will have a shining career." That was about 33 years ago, and I can remember her and the moment as if it was yesterday. I've reflected often on that day and her comment and wondered, what is it that would lead a patient to make such a profound and loving statement about her physician? And the only thing I've come up with that truly separated Dr. Gifford from the many other extremely bright and competent supervisors I've had in medical school was his loving kindness. He truly loved his patients, and he did not judge. To the contrary, he marveled in their tenacity in the face of very difficult medical and social conditions. So I want to say up front that while I've just provided two anecdotes, I'm not from the anecdotal school of medicine. The power of the story is potent, but I remain an empiricist to some degree, and I want to note that there is ample evidence that healing is a combination of our ever-increasing prowess in diagnosis and treatment and the many human factors that strongly affect our biology. Studies show clearly that patients whose physicians demonstrate higher empathy have better outcomes. Other studies have shown that compassion, prayer, and loving relationships have a positive effect on healing. Now, to this point, I've really only focused on the importance of love in the physician-patient relationship, but love and loving kindness applies to all of our relationships. It is core to who we are and how we exist in the world. The take-home message to me is that to truly have and give love, you need to start with yourself. To exhibit loving kindness towards oneself is not always easy. We, especially I think in the medical profession, tend to be our own harshest critics. But if we can't extend the warm embrace of loving kindness to ourselves, how can we possibly do so for others? Let's revisit the words of Chien Hung. Loving kindness, in its purest form, comes from acceptance and embracing ourselves for who we are, and in that, learn to love others wholeheartedly, unjudgingly, and unconditionally, without justification and condemnation. This way, the barriers melt away, allowing love and kindness to shine in its entirety. Metta. Now that we've spoken for the past few minutes about loving kindness in the context of competencies required of a physician, both in their interactions with patients and with themselves, it begs the question, is loving kindness a requisite competency to be a physician? You might be surprised to hear me say that my answer is no. But I don't think loving kindness is a competency. Competencies are requisite abilities of physicians that can and must be taught and measured. I don't see loving kindness that way. A common refrain is that not all that can be measured is meaningful, and not all that is meaningful is measurable. This is an instance of the latter. I see loving kindness as an aspirational core attribute, central to who we seek to be as humans, both in and outside of our work. Loving kindness is for me a continuous challenge that requires explicit reflection and action, course corrections, and an openness to strive for an ideal, even knowing how elusive that ideal might be. So I hope that you all will aspire to loving kindness, especially in these trying times where judgment and othering are so prevalent and malignant. You can start with the white coats at the ceremony today. Each time you don your white coat, starting today, I will hope that you will think of it as the coat of loving kindness. What would healthcare look like if the last thought for every doctor before we entered an examination room or hospital room or office to meet a patient was about loving kindness, unjudging, unconditional love? And as you accept your white coats today, I wish for all of you this. May you spend your lifetimes learning and loving. Loving your chosen profession, loving the peers who've also embarked on this journey with you, loving your many teachers who will teach you both what you want to be and what you don't want to be, loving your patients, each of whom shares the gift of their lives with you, loving your families and friends who have most assuredly played a large role in your being here today, and loving and caring for yourselves so that you can reach your greatest potential and find joy and fulfillment along the way. And may all of us be at least 1/10 the doctor that Dr. Gifford is. It's been a privilege to address you at your white coat ceremony. I can only think of one way to end this talk, and that is with love. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, and I now go back to my MC role. So in honor of community physicians, I would like to introduce Dr. Ryan Greiner, President of the Twin Cities Medical Society, to share his thoughts on this occasion. Thanks.
And, what a great message to follow. I'll start with thanking the medical school, its distinguished faculty, and most importantly, you all, the next generation of medicine. Thank you for dedicating your life to a challenging yet rewarding career. I'd like to take a few moments to share my thoughts about the coming adventure and leave you with an impression that the Medical Society is your partner in this journey. The profession of medicine offers this gateway to a life of imagination, compassion, interpersonal affirmation, and technical expertise. It offers the satisfaction of delayed gratification and the prospects of being and doing something unique and sought after. It brings the pride of one's family and the acknowledgement of achievement. And most importantly, it accentuates the vulnerability of human life and invites you into its suffering and its joy. It is a life of commitment to a higher purpose, and you are starting on that journey. As you begin, I would offer a bit of advice about the inevitable trials and tribulations that you will encounter alongside the joy and excitement of your practice. Each of us, having gone before you, have our own stories about when our compassion and empathy faltered, or when we didn't live up to someone's expectations, or when we felt like an imposter in a white coat. Share these experiences with each other, care for one another, have concern, and ultimately find joy in your fellowship. Never forget that you are no different than the patient. Like them, you are vulnerable, emotional, contemplative, and introspective. You have aspirations and fears. You have doubt and conviction. You can be selfish, but also giving and altruistic. And within that very humble recognition of the fellowship you share with your patient, you will find the compassion and empathy to care for them and guide them to better health and well-being. Always remember that medicine without empathy and compassion is not medicine at all. Empathy and compassion are the driving force of everything that we do and are the protection from the cynicism and stress that create burnout and foster mental health disorders. Cultivate these emotions, admire them, teach them, reinforce them, and celebrate them. Find ways to remove barriers to their expression. Most importantly, ask that your mentors and teachers value your vulnerability and appreciate the innocence of your compassion and empathy. We are here to help you. You are already a member of the Twin Cities Medical Society, one of the longest-standing institutions of organized medicine in Minnesota. We are your champion, your advocate, and your partner. Your well-being is our priority. Your success is our aspiration. Please look to us as a place for your ideas. Use our services and programs to help you succeed, both in celebration and in struggle. And most importantly, become involved. The physician will always be recognized as a pillar of leadership in the community. Join us in continuing that tradition and work to fulfill your dreams for your future and beyond. Thank you.
Thanks so much for those beautiful words, Dr. Greiner. Okay, now comes the coding ceremony. Don't forget your puzzle pieces, by the way. So let me explain how we're going to conduct this coding ceremony. Our students are actually organized from their first day into learning communities by their faculty advisor groups. And they're going to continue with these faculty advisor groups for the next 4 years. So today, we invite the faculty advisors to place the white coats on their students, thus symbolically starting that journey. I'm going to ask something hard. I'm going to ask you to please hold the applause until they are all complete. I know that's a hard thing to do. We have 3 dignitaries who will read the students' names: Ms. Dimple Patel, Associate Dean for Admissions, Dr. Ann Pereira, Assistant Dean for Curriculum, and Dr. Michael Kim, Assistant Dean for Student Affairs. Additionally, as they continue across the stage, each student will be greeted by Michelle Graffelman and Abby Schnaith, who are distinguished Gold Humanism Honor Society speakers, Dr. Jakub Tolar, Dean of the Medical School, Dr. Mark Rosenberg, Vice Dean for Education and Academic Affairs, and Dr. Ryan Grenier, who you just met, Twin Cities Medical Society. I want to invite you to do one other thing. Look around right now, and I think what you'll see is that it's hard, other than the fact that you know they're all sitting in front, it's hard to distinguish right now our medical students from the rest of the audience. So this is a figurative welcome into the field of medicine, but it's also a really cool literal welcome into the field of medicine. And I want you to watch as the transformation occurs, not just figuratively, but literally, as these rows of students who are similar to the rest of the audience start to slowly fill up with white coats, and the look that ends at the end when they all have their white coats. So please pay attention as we go through. I'd like to start by inviting Dr. Ayanu's group. Great. And I would invite our dignitaries on the stage to take their places. So the greeters will be to my left. You will be to my right. So the greeters to my left. So Dr. Tolar and Dr. Rosenberg.
You're doing a fine job here.
And then I would invite Dr. Thank you, Scott. I see the group is getting up. And then who's the first readers? Dr. Pereira.
Dakota Anderson. Benjamin Bayoun. Christiana Johnson. Mina Krenz. Stuart Lean. Logan Gregory Peter. Jacob Schaefer. Megan Shramsky. Kirsten Snook. Justice Spriggs. Jillian Wothy. Lensa Ali. Michelle Burning. Chandra Boma Edholm. Jay Kreger. Ainsley Crows. Dominique Erland. Dalton Hermans. Edith Hernandez. Christopher Johns. Soren Kantasaria. Anders Lindstedt. Andrea Maxwell. Alexander Nelson. Laura Padilla. Michael Patterson. Lauren Elise Penz. Aaron Schumacher. Olivia Smith. Jose Valentin Lopez. Jacob Walling. David Wu.
Wyatt B.B. Hauser Wagner. Adam Busharab. Paul Cho. Rachel Gallagher. Michael Hagstrom. Musa Hussein. Erica Kasky. Nadia Long Van. Allison Raynham. Parithia Sekar. Malavika Surash. Brandy Carlberg. Christian Matthew Hanna. Lauren Harvey. Gregory Hooks. Sienna Keller. Cameron Meyer Mueller. Asha Muhammad. Anna Prue. Lucas Ray. Niels August Ryden. Allison Vicelio.
Bailey Abernathy. Leah Alimu. Nicholas Ebert. Trevor Killian. Benjamin Kofed. Allison Levon. Adam Lord. Thomas Marcroft. Alethea Prue. Sophia Schmidt. Megan Zeldenrust. Jesse Abelson. Mohammed Amin. Alexandra Austin. Aaron Chupuy. Brianna Cuniff. Abigail Driscoll. Mackenzie Dutton. Kylene Grissom. Louis Hay. Nathan Holthouse. David Kraus. Benedict Moran. Caitlin Parsons. Neha Patlapali. Michael Prairie. Carly Rand. Caitlin Ripka. Hannah Ray Smith. Griffin Strike. Andrew Tashney. Lauren Toper. And Matthew Tran.
Abdurrahman Ahmed. Alan Proxajo Bergstead. Brooke Brayman. John Butterfield. Abhishek Chandra. Andrea Clinch. Samantha Considine. Carol Coutinho. Kelsey Crow. Emily Kristen Curtis. Nick Dabiran. Zachary Dent. Ian Durbin. William Dyke. Hina Gardner. Michaela Hong. Ben Huang. David Mayo Iman. Reed Johnson. Drishti Lal. Billy Mua. Brandon O'Connor. That was Abhinav Lambda. It's not in here. Where was it? Do you think that's Brandon O'Connor? Okay, so this is Brandon? Okay. So then I have Madison. Madison Okuno. Katie Plampton. Anna Rarick. Alora Sager. Thomas Schumann. Zara Shocker. Catherine Shaughnessy. Amy Song. Honore Thor. Tannen Topol.
Safa Abdul Kadir. Mitchell Butterbaugh. Dominic Durham. Hadley French. Ryan Gigstead. Jack Goldstein. Anam Hassan. Kira Kazmarchuk. Thomas Kaiser Powers. Christina Kaeland. Thomas Kane. Samantha King. Emmanuel Okemati. Preethi Prasad. Zareen Rahman. Jenna Robinson. Michael Schmitz. Willis Sugar. Grant Simonson. Jesse Smith. Mary Thomas. Grace Wilson. Lindsay Amundsen. Elizabeth Babkin. Matthew Breeze. Kari Fallis. Rebecca Karuk. John Quo. Andrew Lyman Butler. Shrey Mullick. Amy Parkinson. Benjamin Simpson. Cynthia Jung.
Osi Rema Abulu. Alyssa Axelrod. Ilhan Stefan Ise. Emily Fellows. Tyler James Gathman. Kayla Mackenzie Hammond. Caleb Hoover. Madison Kelly. Timothy Young-Acha. Jamie Shep Oyster. Jonathan Vegert. Jando Daniel. Sina Golzarian. Joy Harris. Sarah Lentz. Anna Lundeen. Connor Nath. Gerard Andre. Sarah Peller. Aliyah Sekor. Emily Ann Stock. And Rachel Sweet.
Spectacular. Thank you. Yes, in a moment. Thank you.
No, I'm looking at your notes.
We have the oath first.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Congratulations, class of 2023. One more round of applause for the class of 2023. And just to emphasize that little transformation, I'm going to ask just this once. I want the class of 23 to stand and face all of your family and friends and give them a round of applause for getting you to these seats today. Awesome, thank you. There's a lot of love in the air today. So as physicians, we need to use all of our senses when working with patients, and the instruments you've received are the tools that allow us to extend those senses. As listening is obviously one of the most important skills a physician should have, I especially feel the stethoscope uniquely represents that need to listen to your patients. For most of you, your stethoscope will be an ever-present reminder of your position and status, but let it also be a reminder of how we need to connect with our patients. I would like to now invite, for one of my favorite parts of this ceremony, Dr. Michael Kim, Assistant Dean of Student Affairs, to lead you in the recitation of your oath.
All right. We'll be reading together, and I would invite any physician in the audience who would like to join along. I'll get you started, we'll read together, and I'll let you finish. We, the University of Minnesota class of 2023, acknowledge the privilege to pursue the profession of physician. Pledge the following. I, as a physician, pledge to remain humble and adaptable, while serving as a student, partner, and guide. I promise to be present for my patients and colleagues, to be attentive to their individual needs and goals, and to be empathetic partner on their journey. I will carry my own physical, spiritual, and mental well-being, always remembering the healing power of compassion, humor, and joy. I remember that my perspective is about one of many. I acknowledge my limitations and I ask for help when needed. I will have reverence for the wisdom of my team, my patients, and their families. I pledge to draw inspiration from my mentors and learning from the patients I serve. I will strive to be a leader with medical expertise and high moral character, both in professional settings and in my community. I will bear witness to my patients' stories, serving as an advocate and partner in their care. I will continuously strive to empower those I serve. I will never forget that the bodies and minds of my patients are their own, and will offer my knowledge and skills without judgment or expectation. I acknowledge that inequity continues to exist in the field of medicine, and recognize that patients impacts their health. Knowing this allows me to be a positive agent for change. I will be a lifelong learner, pushing the boundaries of medicine, sharing knowledge with those around me. With this coat, UKLS of 2023 pledge to maintain our commitment to progress, certifications, and exam that brought us through the field of medicine. Beautifully written. Ho.
So, before we end, and that oath was written by the students, believe it or not, in a collaborative effort this week. and speaks, I'm sure, for all of you who are standing around, including me, who are going to be the recipients of their health care, speaks very well for what our future holds. So our distinguished dean got to greet you all on Monday morning as the opening remarks. And he's going to close out this very special week today. So it is my distinct honor to introduce Dr. Jakub Tolar, Dean of the University of Minnesota Medical School, to leave you with some closing thoughts.
Well, I did one better because I saw you this lunch hour, and it was a special pleasure to shake your hands twice a day. Yeah. There's an art to it. I am very honored, as I told you and your families, that you are joining our medical school. And I am very grateful to the team at the Dean's office and this medical school, the Dean Rosenberg, Erlander, Kim, Pereira, and everybody else who has joined us today for committing their professional lives and much of their personal lives to you. Because we know something you don't, not the knowledge, but we know that you will come out of this auditorium and come back in 4 hours, different people. We no longer think of education as a transmission of knowledge, sort of a transfusion of knowledge. We think of it as a transmitting values, core beliefs, transforming people into who you will become, that you are not yet there. So it takes a moment, and it is a reflection of the fact that you are for the first time in white coats, and the significance of this should be a little bit triggering a reflection of sorts, and sort of, what is it? What does it feel like to have, for the first time, a white coat on you? What does it feel like reciting the oath? What does it feel like to really starting on a path to be a physician, a healer, a doctor, a partner to your patients? So when you do that, when you start earning that privilege, and it takes years, and in fact, it takes decades to get that. Remember this feeling, because this is exactly what it feels if you make a diagnosis that changes somebody's life, that you design a treatment that has never existed before, that you perhaps will find out a way of treating a complication or a disease that has been incurable and totally impossible to deal with the modern medicine. That is what you're gonna feel in slightly different way, but in the same depth and intensity when you console a family at the end of life. And this all will hinge on several things. I was truly impressed with Abby and Michelle. I told you that. It was really brilliant. The puzzle metaphor is exactly right, because the humanities, the arts, the other parts of you, sports for that matter, will be tremendously important in your ability to be a physician. I'm a bone marrow transplant physician and oncologist, and if I have a new family, new patient, the treatment itself, that's trivial. That is, less than 5% of what I do. What constitutes the majority of what I do is to get them to understand that the tragedy that was not supposed to happen happened, and how they're gonna cope with it. Explain that teenager perhaps will lose her hair, lose a couple years of her school, lose her friends, and get them to the position of healing together in a partnership. And that is what the traditional science, the traditional medicine is not very effective at teaching you. Arts, music, history, and other humanities are much more powerful in that way. I liked what our eloquent MC said about Abraham Flexner. I always reflect on the thing. Everybody knows the 1910 report and, how highly we like to think. He rated Minnesota at the time that we got it. We got the connection between practice and education. What I'm thinking about is, this is a guy who was a boss of very smart people, like Albert Einstein. Imagine that Einstein reports to you. This is not a normal job. This guy knew what management and leadership, what it meant. And I like, Dean Rosenberg never tires of the Canadian link, and Osler was a Canadian. He also was in Johns Hopkins and then in Oxford. But nevertheless, Canadian once, Canadian always. The important thing, though, is that I am the most passionate about how well-being of your patients and yourself must be. But do understand, and as we having this, sort of a group hug at these times, that compassion alone is not enough. I can guarantee you that our predecessors 200 years ago to millennia ago, they're very compassionate. And their patients still died of things that we don't even have on the map. And the delta between the effective compassion and compassion is science. So science is what makes medicine medicine. Science is why you are in this hall. Science is the reason why 300 million people die of smallpox just this last century. And this century, zero. No one. 100 years ago, surgery was nearly impossible with anesthesia. Antibiotics, sort of. Every childbirth was a life-threatening event. And we have moved there, and we have changed what this mankind should count as one of the highest achievements of this civilization, which is modern medicine, by virtue of science. The addition to that, of course, is, as you pointed at the lunch hour, when I was having the honor of greeting your parents and seeing you are happy, I get that, you are energetic, but look at your parents, they live in that reflected light of your energy and your current accomplishment. That's beautiful. And the same team, the same connectivity that has served you so well getting here will transform and transmute, in my opinion, into the relationships you will have with your patients. And you will learn how to live your life from your patients. If you are listening enough, if you are careful enough, you will. Okay, so it looks very good from here. White coats, bright smiles, all good. I have great hopes for you, great dreams, that we share. I'm very proud of you, very proud of this university. And as you are being kind and pursuing excellence, congratulations.
Okay, wow, great day, very exciting. And before we end, though, a few more thanks, because this day didn't just suddenly happen. And by the way, one little glitch, we admit it, during that coding ceremony, but I think we just showed you all that when we say the faculty will give you the coats off their backs, so this was really predominantly put together today by a wonderful staff member who you all got to meet and love this week, Rachel Rudine, and I want to thank her. She really was the mastermind behind most of our last week. Yay! And also, as is always so auspicious in this great hall, I really want to thank the Health Sciences Orchestra and Maestro Steve Ramsey for their beautiful music here today. We are about to close this ceremony, so let me explain how things will go logistically. In a moment, the members on the stage will first process out, followed by the students. Students, you need to head outside to take a class photo on the south steps, and as you walk out, you'll be guided there. To our guests in the audience, while we're taking the photo, what we'd like you to do after all the students have left is join us in the lobby where we'll have some light refreshments. And we're going to do our best to quickly take the photo and get them back in to be with you. What we ask is that you leave them outside by themselves for a second just to get the photo so when they come back quickly they can be with you. And you'll have an opportunity to purchase the class photo if you choose. I want to thank you all for being here today for one of the really most beautiful ceremonies in our lives as physicians, and most importantly, welcome to all of the class of 2023 to this noble profession. Thank you. Have a great day.